ASMR Classic 1. I suppose I ought to check really before. I will do next time, I promise. So, first of all, let me just say thank you so much. We've now got 40 followers. Yay! I also, apparently, it's not 1,000 followers you need. Oh, we've got a bit of food there. Sorry, a bit of rice from earlier, perhaps. This is very much a working space, as you can probably tell from the bits of cable that keep falling into shot. It's our little theatre office. Yes, and someone did point out that it's 100 followers you need, apparently, not 1,000. So if you do know how many followers you need on YouTube to be able to eventually benefit from some of the advertising revenue, perhaps you could just let us know in the comments below, and excuse us for being not as with it as we should be. I'm happier messing around with Shakespeare, really. That's my excuse anyway. And of course, Charles Dickens. So if you are new to us, we're basically a theatre company, and we're using YouTube, hopefully eventually as a way of raising some funds for new projects. And so these videos will hopefully help you relax and sleep. So it doesn't really matter if you don't hear the story, almost, as long as you relax and sleep. I came across ASMR some time ago, and it was a great way for me to drift off, especially when you've got all sorts of thoughts in your head. You know how it gets. So it was. I thought it might be nice to do this, and it is nice to do this, especially as it justifies me, as I've already mentioned, popping down into London, in England, Charing Cross Road, and there's still a few bookshops left there. There was a film, I can't remember the name, it was like 32 Charing Cross Road, or 67 Charing Cross Road. Tony Hopkins was in it, Anthony Hopkins. And it's a sort of a long-distance relationship between a bookseller and I think it was an American lady, American woman. Good film, haven't seen it for a long time. And back in those days when it was written again, I think originally as a book, as of course were many, if not most films, it did rather well. That was then turned into a film. So there aren't as many bookshops now on Charing Cross Road, but there still are a couple. And I went in to look for another book, which I've bought elsewhere, by the way. I might share it with you later. And just came across this. And again, apologies if you've already heard the previous videos, but I've written a version of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It's touring the UK at the moment, and it's about to open, as I speak, off-Broadway, at a place called the Soho Playhouse in New York. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford to get over there, but it's quite nice that it is happening. I adapted it, or I say wrote it, adapted it from Dickens, obviously, and I also directed it. So if you know the production, you'll know who I am. And there's a very good, experienced actor called Guy, someone or other, Guy, who is performing it. It's a one-person show. I've got a couple more that have done reasonably well at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which you may or may not know is the biggest open arts festival in the world. And I've been up there for the last few years. Yeah, and maybe we'll do something Scottish later. But in the meantime, this is very topical, so this is the book. Excuse me, I'm still sniffling a bit. But I popped into Charing Cross Road and picked up. It's obviously quite old, as you can see. Christmas Stories. I think in the front. Oops, sorry, that was a bit noisy. It's all in reverse here, isn't it? Yes. So, yep, £65. No wonder I can't afford to go to New York. But it's dates back to, where did we have a look, didn't we? Here we go, yep, The Seven Poor Travellers. This, by the way, is an illustration from a story we're reading at the moment. And then there's this lovely little protecting thing. And these were we think, from his magazines that he wrote for Household Words and All the Year Round. And I'm sorry for a bit of shake there. As I say, it's very cheap equipment that we're using here. A camera phone and a sort of very thin plastic stand. But as you can see, printed by Chapman and Hall, 193 Piccadilly, which is in London, in 1876. I think I mentioned as well earlier that I know an antiquarian book collector who says we never really own old books. We just look after them until the next people take them on. So, without further ado, let's continue to our story. This is my Welsh bookmark from mid Wales. It's a lovely little place. You see the Harbour Master Hotel, and this is actually someone's artwork. So as I mentioned before, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to even show it. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure they won't mind anyway. Yes, as I was mentioning, sorry, my message pinged just then. I couldn't have that on this tape as well, because it would have jumped through the roof. So I did actually almost. But yes, so this is actually someone's artwork. So, but Aberron, and interestingly, in terms of writing, I found out that the head of creative writing at the University of London, Birkbeck College, is actually from here originally, I think. And it's a lovely place. Try and get there at least once a year, usually twice a year, to be honest. Some friends of ours have got a house nearby, but I won't bore you with that, because we've got to get back on to chapter 2 of The Seven Poor Travellers. I'll pop that over there. So, chapter 2, the story of Richard Doubledick. In the year 1799, a relative of mine came limping down on foot to this town of Chatham. Chatham, by the way, is in Kent, in the south of England. I call it this town because if anyone present knows to a nicety where Rochester ends and Chatham begins, it is more than I do. He was a poor traveller with not a farthing in his pocket. He sat by the fire in this very room, and he slept one night in a bed that will be occupied tonight by someone here. My relative came down to Chatham to enlist in a cavalry regiment, if a cavalry regiment would have him. If not, to take King George's shilling from any corporal or sergeant who would put a bunch of ribbons in his hat. His object was to get shot, but he thought he might as well ride to death as be at the trouble of walking. My relative's Christian name was Richard, but he was better known as Dick. He dropped his own surname on the road down and took up that of Doubledick. He was passed as Richard Doubledick, age 22, height 5'10", native place Exmouth, which he had never been near in his life. There was no cavalry in Chatham when he limped over the bridge here with half a shoe to his dusty feet, so he enlisted into a regiment of the line and was glad to get drunk and forget all about it. You ought to know that this relative of mine had gone wrong and run wild. His heart was in the right place, but it was sealed up. He had been betrothed to a good and beautiful girl, whom he had loved better than she, or perhaps even he, believed. But in an evil hour he had given her cause to say to him solemnly, "Richard, I will never marry another man. I will live single for your sake." But Mary Marshall's lips, her name was, of course, Mary Marshall, never address another word to you on earth. Go, Richard. Heaven forgive you. This finished him. This brought him down to Chatham. This made him Private Richard Doubledick, with the determination to be shot. There was not a more dissipated and reckless soldier in Chatham Barracks in the year 1799 than Private Richard Doubledick. He associated with the dregs of every regiment. He was as seldom sober as he could be, and was constantly under punishment. It became clear to the whole barracks that Private Richard Doubledick would very soon be flogged. Now the captain of Richard Doubledick's company was a young gentleman not above 5 years his senior, whose eyes had an expression in them which affected Private Richard Doubledick in a very remarkable way. They were bright, handsome, dark eyes, what are called laughing eyes generally, and, when serious, rather steady than severe, but they were the only eyes now left in his narrowed world that Private Richard Doubledick could not stand. Unabashed by evil report and punishment, defiant of everything else and everybody else, he had but to know that those eyes looked at him for a moment, and he felt ashamed. He could not so much as salute Captain Taunton in the street like any other officer. He was reproached and confused, troubled by the mere possibility of the captain's looking at him. In his worst moments, he would rather turn back and go any distance out of his way than encounter those two handsome, dark, bright eyes. One day, when Private Richard Doubledick came out of the black hole where he had been passing the last 48 hours, and in which retreat he spent a good deal of his time, he was ordered to betake himself to Captain Taunton's quarters. In the stale and squalid state of a man just out of the black hole, he had less fancy than ever for being seen by the captain, but he was not so mad yet as to disobey orders, and consequently went up to the terrace overlooking the parade ground where the officers' quarters were, twisting and breaking in his hands as he went along a bit of the straw that had formed the decorative furniture of the black hole. "Come in," cried the captain when he knocked with his knuckles at the door. Private Richard Doubledick pulled off his cap, took a stride forward, and felt very conscious that he stood in the light of the dark, bright eyes. There was a silent pause. Private Richard Doubledick had put the straw in his mouth and was gradually doubling it up into his windpipe and choking himself. "Doubledick," said the captain, "do you know where you are going to?" "To the devil, sir?" faltered Doubledick. "Yes," returned the captain, "and very fast." Private Richard Doubledick turned the straw of the black hole in his mouth and made a miserable salute of acquiescence. "Doubledick," said the captain, "since I entered His Majesty's service a boy of 17, I have been pained to see many men of promise going that road, but I have never been so pained to see a man determined to make the shameful journey as I have been ever since you joined the regiment to see you." Private Richard Doubledick began to find a film stealing over the floor, at which he looked. Also to find the legs of the captain's breakfast table turning crooked, as if he saw them through water. "I am only a common soldier, sir," said he. "It signifies very little what such a poor brute comes to." "You are a man," returned the captain with grave indignation, "of education and superior advantages. And if you say that, meaning what you say, You have sunk lower than I had believed. How low that must be, I leave you to consider. Knowing what I know of your disgrace, and seeing what I see, I hope to get shot soon, sir, said Richard Doubledick, and then the regiment and the world together will be rid of me. The legs of the table were becoming very crooked. Doubledick, looking up to steady his vision, met the eyes that had so strong an influence over him. He put his hand before his own eyes, and the breast of his disgraced jacket swelled as if it would fly asunder. I would rather, said the young captain, see you in this, Doubledick, than I would see 5,000 guineas counted out upon this table for a gift to my good mother. Have you a mother? I am thankful to say she is dead, sir. If your praises, returned the captain, were sounded from mouth to mouth through the whole regiment, through the whole army, through the whole country, you would wish she had lived to say with pride and joy, he is my son. Spare me, sir, said Doubledick. She would have never heard any good of me. She would never have had any pride and joy in owning herself my mother. Love and compassion she might have had, and would always had, I know, but not. Spare me, sir. I am a broken wretch, quite at your mercy. And he turned his face to the wall, and stretched out an imploring hand. My friend, began the captain. God bless you, sir, sobbed Private Richard Doubledick. You are at the crisis of your fate. Hold your course unchanged a little longer, and you know what must happen. I know, even better than you can imagine, that, after that has happened, you are lost. No man who could shed those tears could bear those marks. I fully believe it, sir, in a low, shivering voice, said Private Richard Doubledick. But a man in any station can do his duty, said the young captain, and in doing it can earn his own respect, even if his case should be so very unfortunate and so very rare that he can earn no other man's. A common soldier, poor brute, though you called him just now, has this advantage in the stormy times we live in, that he always does his duty before a host of sympathising witnesses. Do you doubt that he may do it, that he may so do it as to be extolled through a whole regiment, through a whole army, through a whole country? Turn while you may yet retrieve the past, and try. I will. I ask for only one witness, sir, cried Richard with a bursting heart. I understand you. I will be a watchful and a faithful one. I have heard from Private Richard Doubledick's own lips that he dropped down upon his knee, kissed that officer's hand, arose, and went out of the light of the dark, bright eyes, an altered man. And we shall find out what happens next when he leaves. Because as you can see, the French were in Egypt. Oh, no, I won't. We'll stop there. I'll put my French bookmark back. Good old Charles Dickens. Oops, sorry about the shake. Christmas Stories by Dickens. Thank you so much for staying with me this long, and thank you also for your very kind comments. Can't believe we're at 40 followers now. Hooray! And as I mentioned at the start, I'm not sure, someone said you don't have to have 1,000 followers, but 100 followers in order to try and benefit from some finance from YouTube. And if you know a bit more than us, then perhaps you could thank you so much again for your participation, and thank you for your very kind comments. We're using these videos to hopefully create more new works of art with our not-for-profit theatre company. And I'll leave you again as, oh yes, of course, sorry, if you wouldn't mind following us. That would be fantastic. And I think someone said you can stick up a thumb as well. Down below again. So thank you for that. Maybe it'll be 41 next time we get together. Who knows? But I'll leave you as I have done before, because I'm creating this at a fairly festive time of the year, and we are talking about Christmas stories in the words of the great Charles Dickens. God bless us all, everyone. Thank you.